Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Next Gen MFG, the podcast where I highlight individuals who are working in the industry and doing great things. So today I have with me Liv, also known as Indie's Garage on TikTok and Instagram. Hi, Liv. So Liv is 22 years old and she's attending the University of Northwestern Ohio, and her degree is for high performance motorsports technology. So I met Liv on TikTok and I'm just gonna kind of let her introduce herself.
Thank you. I I mean, I just love cars, anything that really goes fast. That's how I kind of started. I did not was not born into this interest at all. I actually didn't find out about it until like 2, 3 years ago. It was like after I graduated from high school and I started making my own friends. And then they were like, "Oh, let's go to a car meet." And then I was like, "Okay, I don't know, cars look cool." And then I've always been a learner, so I started being like, well, I want to know why they're cool. And then it was like, oh, they were like, this is fast because of this. And I was like, well, now I want to know how to do that. And then it was, well, now I want to do it myself. And then I stumbled across another TikTok of a kid who went to UNOH and was like, I need to be there. I literally I didn't even tour the school. I just put in an application and went. I'm from Cleveland originally. I was born and raised there, never moved. The first time I ever moved out of the city was to go to college. So huge culture shock. If you think about the exact stereotype of a redneck, that was my teacher, my first teacher ever there. And I was like, oh, this is real. But it was the best introduction to the blue collar hands on lifestyle that I ever could have had. And I really haven't looked back.
I've noticed there's a lot of like similarities with our story. Like I wasn't also raised in
Yeah,
like an automotive focused family, but I really like that you had good friends that like introduced you to that sort of stuff.
it was I mean integral into having that because I didn't know anything about cars, and it was really cool that I was able to have people like start explaining that to me and then giving me the power to continue that learning on my own.
So when you decided to go to UNOH, was there any like pushback from your family?
Yes and no. So I was originally in a 4 year like university. I went for 1 year right out of high school for business and political science actually. I wanted to be a lawyer growing up. Like first grade when they ask you and everyone's like, I want to be a fireman, I want to be a ballerina. I don't even think I knew what a lawyer was, but somebody told me I liked to argue and I'd be a good one. And I just ran with it. And I have ADHD, I have autism, so as I got more into my high school and like college, I lacked a lot of the executive function to be able to switch gears and handle so many classes at once. And
Mm.
that's what was getting me. It wasn't that I wasn't learning the information. It was, oh, I have this project due in 3 weeks and I forget it exists halfway in. Now it's the deadline and I'm struggling to complete these projects and things like that. That's what was getting me. And so halfway through it, I honestly kind of realized that as much as I did it with in mind to help people, I wanted to help people that really didn't have a voice for themselves. But I realized like halfway through that first year that honestly, I wasn't going to be able to leave it at my job. I was going to take it home with me and it was going to have an emotional toll. And so I realized that I was probably better suited doing something else and maybe volunteering on like a case by case basis, like where I was able to help people out when I had the emotional capacity to do so. So I took about 2 years off and I was working full time. I was really happy. I kept the thought in the back of my head, oh, I should go back to school. I should go back to school. But it wasn't, I mean, college is expensive. I'm paying out of pocket. I wasn't going to spend the money on something that I wasn't sure I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I think my parents, on one hand, were very happy that I was just going back to college. But then on the other hand, they were like, cars? I'm 5 foot, maybe 100 pounds soaking wet. They were like, you're not going to be able to do any of this like physical stuff because it is a very physical job. And I mean, I like to think that I've proved them wrong. I've gained strength and done stuff that I literally would never have expected me to be able to do. So I like to think that I'm helping prove them wrong, but I know that they're also just happy I'm getting a degree and going to school for something.
I've seen your TikTok, so I know you're definitely proving them wrong.
I'm almost 2 years into the 3 year program, so I'm a little over halfway. And it's honestly been really, really cool to see the stuff that I've learned. That me 3 years ago would have been terrified of. I cannot lie, using an oxyacetylene torch still does scare me. I think that's, as much as I say this, I really do think that that's being a woman. I think as a woman, I have a healthy fear of fire, and
But that's a good thing.
men just set stuff on fire and then they think about the consequences later. I'm terrified of it. But yeah, but even learning to weld and machining, like I can machine a whole block and head by hand, and fabrication, and just like even just little, like I'm EPA Max certified in auto HVAC, like just little stuff like that where it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's things that you wouldn't
Yeah.
get in high school or that I wouldn't normally get in like my day to day every experience I've learned through college, that even even if I could understand the theory of it, like through YouTube University or something like that, having the ability and the resources to actually practice that stuff, because the stuff that you need to do to learn machining is expensive. Fabrication and welding, those materials and the time and everything, that's expensive. And a lot of people don't necessarily have that at their disposal to be able to mess up.
A lot of people talk down on people who go to tech school for automotive because they're like, that's something you could just learn by living it. Well, no, because you had a teacher. At the end of the day, if you were living it, you still had someone teaching you. For me, auto tech was so
Exactly.
important because I didn't have that person teaching me similar to you. So it didn't matter how much it costed for me, that was priceless. I needed to learn that.
Exactly. And then on top of that, just learning general like skills, like the ability to like talk. People, I think, don't understand how important talking to people is in this industry. Regardless of if you're the best mechanic ever, like if you can't adequately explain yourself to be able to explain what you're doing, or just like networking skills. I actually got to work with a team for a Moto America team when they were at Mid Ohio in August, and that was like the biggest deal. I networked my way through the paddock to work with that team. I bought a 3 day pass by myself. Like I didn't even plan to go with anybody. I had people I knew were going, but I went by myself. I struggle with anxiety, like big crowds, not knowing people. But I was like, I'm gonna do the thing, and I went and I walked over 20,000 steps through the paddock on Friday, and I just talked. I asked questions. I just like watched, I observed everything that I could. And then it was actually one of the last teams I stopped by that Friday evening after all the races were done. Everybody was packing up, and I was just going to go up to him. And I was honestly just going to ask questions. It was a smaller team, Flow for Law Racing. I was just going to ask them questions and be like, hey, like, what are you guys looking for as far as credentials, experience, skills that you would like hire as a mechanic? I went on my little spiel, like, oh, I'm Liv, I go to UNOH, I'm a high performance motorsports student, yada yada, all the thing. And I was asking questions. They're like, "Do you just want to come back, like tomorrow?" I'm like, "Oh, you're kidding me. You're joking, right?" They're like, "No." They gave me a T-shirt and told me to be back at 7 a.m. And I was at 7 a.m. Red Bull in hand. Like, what do you need me to do? And I worked with them the entire weekend. I got to do like tires. They actually spent probably 6 to 7 hours throughout the whole weekend showing me all of the data logging they do. And I'm talking like fork compression, and they would go through every single turn of every single lap and be like, well, this bump in fork compression here combined with the rider saying the back tire felt squirrely and this corner means that we need to do this, this, and this. Like, they actually really broke it down for me. And they told me that they took a chance. They were talking that night before, where they were like, what if she's just some social media girl? You know, she just wants the fan experience. It was a really cool fan experience as somebody who really does enjoy motorcycle racing. But I wanted to learn, and they were like, we thought you were going to be just some, social media girl. And I did. I took some videos and stuff, a clip. I made a little montage on TikTok of stuff that I got to experience. But it was really cool to see them actively take a chance on me. And they straight up told me whenever we're at races, because they were based out of Texas, next season when we're at races up in this area, there's probably like 4 or 5 tracks that are within like weekend driving distance for me. They're like, we'll call you up and we'll have you come work with us. I can use that experience to leverage with other teams and other opportunities. I actually got to talk to Ray Hall Ducati, and they asked for my resume. And they said they'll hit me up about next season as well, which is super cool because if you're into motorcycles, like Ray Hall is one of the biggest names in motorsports, and Ducati is obviously kind of like the paradigm of like sport bike track racing.
Looks like Liv's the next name.
I That'll be
Girl.
scary if I think so.
No, girl, like that's really awesome. I love hearing success stories like this because even though we're still making it, that is a success. That is amazing.
And it was honestly
Yes.
really satisfying that I did it myself. don't get me wrong. Like I mentioned once, like I said, I went to UNOH, and like a lot of motorsports industry disciplines, they do talk to each other. Like there were people that said they're like, oh, like we know UNOH because they did dirt track racing because UNOH has a dirt track team. So like the college name does open doors in and of itself, but UNOH doesn't really have anything specifically related to motorcycles. So I was going in doing all of that networking by myself. And it was actually super cool to talk to people. And I can market myself successfully as an individual and get opportunities based off myself as a person and not riding the coattails of like, oh, I go to this college or I know this person. I did that just me. And that honestly, that was almost more important to me than the experience of working on a team itself because that shows to me that I can replicate that. I can continue to do that and I can continue to get opportunities that way for myself.
I noticed you said marketing. Congratulations on 5,000 on TikTok. That's literally you marketing yourself. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
I've it's honestly been 2 years now since I started like posting like car content. So like I've definitely been like a slower growing account. But honestly, I would prefer that rather than a flash viral video because I know that the people that are following me are people that have like seen my content and looked through my stuff and actually either resonate with it or they're actually interested. I do post a lot of the TikTok trends stuff here and there because it's fun. At the end of the day, TikTok is kind of just fun social media. But I also do try to post mechanic content and explaining things and like, I just want to show other young girls out there that you can do the same stuff that I'm doing with little to no guidance. I kind of want to be that guidance and that inspiration because it is very hard to break into male dominated industries as a woman, especially like I do feel like I'm behind. Like I feel like I have to do so much more to catch up, but I'm fully comfortable with going at the pace that I've been going. I feel like I'm making a lot of stuff happen really quickly. If it keeps happening at this pace and I keep growing like this, I will be more than happy.
I had a question about how your UNOH classes worked. I'm curious.
We do one class at a time for 6 weeks. So Monday through Thursday, I go to night classes because I work during the day. So mine's are 6:30 to 11:30 at night. So 4 days a week for that time block, you literally do one thing, and you do that for 6 weeks. And then you move on to the next. I actually like that because it allows me to focus. That's where that actually like that executive thing where like I struggled with juggling so many things at one time. Having one class at a time allows me to like focus on that. And
Yeah.
I can literally just absorb all of this information specific to one thing, and it's not as like stressful. And um, so I have three gen ed classes, and they're online, so that's a little bit more hard for me to juggle everything. I have to be a lot more careful about looking and stuff like that.
What's Gen Ed? Is that like general education?
Yes. So basically, they have a couple different like degree levels. They have a diploma, they have an
Mhm.
associate's degree, and then you can get a bachelor's. So I will have a double associate's in automotive technology and high performance motorsports technology. So to get a like an actual associate's degree, you have to take all your regular core classes. So I have to take like history classes, science, math, English, stuff like that. So if I was just doing a diploma, the only thing I need to do is like review math and I think like review English. So that's like, and I took those because you have to take those anyway. Review math is like decimals, percentages, like basic math, and then like basic English. I'm pretty sure it was just what are the parts of a sentence. They dumb it down because they know that kids who are getting the diploma don't want to do all those extra classes, so they make it as easy as possible to get a diploma. Now with the degree, I'm to end up taking classes like psychology, human communications, comp one. It's a little more involved. Most of what we're doing is not too far past the high school level, um,
Yeah.
but they're definitely like not tech related. I will say though, they do for the math, they do make everything tech related. So we're doing a lot of unit conversions, so like miles per hour, gallons, things like that. A lot of all the volume that we do mostly is engine volume dimensions. So they do try to make as much of that stuff tech related as possible. I guess it makes it more interesting for the kids that are doing it, but it's still all of your core classes. But I wanted an associate's degree, and then I actually will have the opportunity once I'm done with that, I can add on another 2 years of business classes. And I can do those all online. So once I graduate from all my tech classes, I can still do those. And if I'm going and working on race teams, or I move to another city or work at a shop or something like that, and then after that 2 years, I'll have a bachelor's, and I want to say it's like automotive business management. So basically, that's what they tend to look for if you want to, like, crew chief or manage a race team. They're looking for somebody with those management classes and a management degree. So that will open more doors down the line if I want to choose to, or just honestly, if I want to open my own shop, because that is a goal of mine one day. I do want to open my own shop or have my own race team. And so that'll just kind of give me open those doors as far as the knowledge to do that. So yeah, it's nice. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's nice that they give you the option to where if you just want to do the tech classes, you pretty much just get to do the tech classes. But they don't only have auto tech. They have automotive technology, the high performance side of things. They have agriculture. They have a couple different diesel degrees. They have robotics as well. Something with trains. You can get your CDL through the school, and then they have a business side. So a lot of it is public relations, business marketing, like hospitality. My one old roommate in my house, she was there for forensic accounting, which basically she was working at one of the banks around here doing fraud investigations for them.
Oh,
And she was talking about getting a job with the federal government, like the IRS, to do the tax fraud investigations. So they don't only have tech classes, they do have a business side, and that's your regular 4 years, like your basic university program.
that's really cool for a college. You don't really see like classes like that at a college. I also noticed y'all have a racetrack. Like I was looking, can we talk about the racetrack?
Yeah, so UNOH owns Lima Land, which is like a dirt oval racetrack. Actually, during the summer and every spring, when they're doing all like the dirt track races, they have races every Friday, and they have a motorsports team that you can join that does all of that. And they run three different classes of cars. The only reason I didn't join the motorsports team was because I'm not super into like the regular like pit crew. I don't really want to pit crew somewhere. I would rather either like be in the main shop doing something, or like motorcycles, the pit crew's a little bit different and the motorsports team isn't really going to teach me too much about that. And you have to hold a certain GPA. So a lot of the kids on the motorsports team don't really have jobs. That is like
Mm,
their job, which makes sense if that's something you want, like if that's the discipline of racing you want to get into, or that's something you want to do. Like that's crucial and super valuable experience that kind of, I guess, would replace a job or help you get a better job. But for me, that's not my thing. If I'm gonna do anything car wise, I would rather do road course. I would rather do asphalt road course racing. That's more where I feel at least my passion lies. um I would probably do IndyCar. And then we
cool.
have a drift pad behind the motorsports complex. So they set that up, and the school has a drift club. They have an autocross club. They have a drag club. They have an off-road club. So they do some off-road hill climb and mudding, and you can join these clubs and run your cars, like your own personal car too, not just the school cars. But I could bring my own car and go run in the autocross club or the drift club. And then I know that the school has a partnership with Formula Drift, so they'll send kids out to go work on teams for different Formula D things. And I know IndyCar and NASCAR, they have a lot of partnerships with a lot of bigger car disciplines of racing. Not so much motorcycles, but I'm trying to talk to them about stuff that I understand the liability though. And again, like I feel like although most of the stuff I could learn on my own through YouTube University, it's all like the classes that I couldn't, and then just honestly the connections.
Hmm.
A lot of kids get into UNOH, and I see them drop out because either they're, for lack of a better word, they're too soft for the blue collar industry. Unfortunately, blue collar industries are not an easy place, especially for a woman. But in general, if you can't take criticism and you're not with that, you're not really going to survive in these industries. And then on top of that, these kids will come in being like, "Oh, I worked at a shop in high school, or I did my high school's tech program," and my teacher's like, I'm about to dismantle everything you thought you knew because you're doing it wrong." And so I see a lot of kids like quit because of that, or because they feel like, oh, I'm not getting opportunities. And it's like, they teach you everything. You got to go get the opportunities. You got to market yourself, and you get out what you put in. And just
Just
like
like
the
the
real
real
world.
world.
And like, Lima's boring, don't get me wrong. I'm used to the hustle and bustle of a city and always having something to do. But having a good group of friends, like I have so many winter projects that I'm gonna end up doing. And my buddy's got a motor in my garage right now. We got a 5.3 and a 4L60 that we're rebuilding. My roommate, she owns two hearses. Like she drives around a hearse. She's
As girls who went to tech school, we both find tech school really useful. What's your advice to other, not just girls, but like other young people who didn't grow up around cars like we both did? What's your advice for them if they're in automotive school to like keep going? And what's your advice to them if they want to go to school?
So, my biggest advice to people like currently in automotive school, ask questions. Like, I know they say there's no stupid questions, but I'm the queen of stupid questions. Like, I will ask my instructors 10 ways to Sunday, like, how do you do this? How do you do this? Am I doing this right? Am I doing like what makes this easier? Whatever it is. There's no shame in asking questions. There's no shame in asking for help. Like, I'm short. When I was in machining class, I had to ask for a step stool.
It just is what it is, you know?
I can reach the settings on the top of the machine because I was like, I need a step stool. Or it was really hard because, I mean, these heads, we were practicing on cast iron heads, and they're heavy. So for me to be up trying to put this in the machine with one hand and tighten down the clamps, I was like, somebody hold this here. I know what I'm doing, but I just need a hand. And asking for help, asking questions, looking for opportunities. A lot of the teachers at UNOH do their own disciplines of racing. They have their own niches of things that they're super into, whether they actually work on a race team or they go out and race dirt track or just building their own vehicles. If you get a really good rapport with your instructors, you will be the one that they come to for help if they need a hand, and that opens other things. Instructors talk, people talk, the industry talks. So making good impressions and being willing to work. If the teacher's like, hey, I have a project, this car came in for A, B, and C, raise your hand. Be like, can I help? Can I do this? Can I look? Can I watch? Whatever, because that's what's going to get you letters of recommendation. Um, and then honestly, for people who are looking to go to school, don't be scared. Like I said, I'm almost 2 years in, but we don't have the same students in each class. I can't lie, I still have a mini panic attack the first day of class, being like, who's going to be in my class? What's this teacher going to be like? And you might feel that like coming into school for the first time or whatever, but don't let that deter you from doing what you want to do. My first probably 4 or 5 sessions, I straight up was terrified. But as you meet more people and you hear more things about teachers, it's a lot less intimidating. And then you can take those skills that you learn and apply them to the real world and going to interviews and talking to race teams. Because, like I said, marketing yourself is key. Because, yeah, your school name might get you in the door. Oh, I went to UNOH, so they know what I'm supposed to have learned. But I can tell you so many kids that I go to school with that I wouldn't trust to touch my car. And that's because either they don't market themselves that they actually know what they're doing, or they don't apply themselves to know what they're doing. So, yeah, the school, the degree can only really get you so far if you can't show that you can do that or did this.
So basically, engage in your classes, engage with your teachers,
Yes.
your peers, and don't be afraid.
Speaking of being afraid, I was such a scaredy cat growing up. Like, I'm talking scared of riding a bicycle. I'm still scared of heights. I barely rode a bicycle growing up because I was terrified of it. I was terrified when I first got my motorcycle. I got a little 250. It was like, oh my God, this is one of the scariest things I've ever done. But once I got over that fear, it's been the most freeing thing I've ever done in my life. And I've done so much more stuff because I got over that one fear. I went on a jet ski for the first time. I was like on a boat. Like, I'm a lot more open to trying opportunities and new things that maybe like I might be a little scared of, but I'm actually doing it. Like I will be buying a 600 over the winter, and I'm gonna fix it up. I want to be able to turn it into a track bike. It's probably gonna take me a couple years because track riding is expensive and school comes first. But I want to go for my pro license. Like I want to be able to like, go do club races and actually race on top of doing all my race team mechanic stuff. Don't get me wrong, I still love that. Having that freeing has been like the coolest thing I've ever done. I work at a bike shop back home in Cleveland. I go up there on breaks and weekends when we build drag and roll bikes, and they want me to jockey those at the drag strip. But if you would have met me before I started riding, I never would have said yes. I would have been like, that's too fast, that's too scary. And now I'm ready to go.
Imagine we can get you a sponsorship
That would
from the
be
podcast.
that would be
Honestly,
cool.
that's the reason I'm doing this podcast is that so that maybe somebody hears how cool y'all are and will reach out and want to actually meet with y'all because what a lot of the people on LinkedIn don't realize is that there's young people that are eager because you're telling me all this stuff, I'm hearing it and I'm like, this is what they want. they don't realize that there's people like you, there's people like me. We're out there, and you you know what you know, and you're without publicizing it, you're doing it. So I kind of want to publicize it a little bit more.
When I was working with the team, I was like, this can't be cheap. Like, all those team mad sponsors and stuff. And I was like, I asked them, they said they spend about $15,000 a weekend. They do that about 10 weekends a year. That's just like race costs. That's the cost to get in the race, your gas, tires, like maintenance, paying the people, like lodging, accommodations, things like that. That's not buying the bike, setting up. And that's for one rider. They have two riders. They were only running one on the weekend that I went because of the way the bracket was. Some of these teams out here have six riders, multiple different classes like of events. Like those are like the big teams. That's like Honda Racing, Yamaha, big teams. They're spending millions of dollars a year, like on this industry. Like this is a motorsports is a huge industry, and like motorcycle racing is probably one of the most expensive and like most watched. Like MotoGP, it's up there with like Formula One, like as far as like worldwide like viewers. And like there's a lot of money to be had in that industry, but there has to be money to be put into the industry. And that's the biggest thing for me is even just like a 1 day track session for me to go mid Ohio on an open track day, probably like $700 by the time I'm all done. And that's for 1 day, like novice level open. When you're doing club weekends and things, I've heard people say they'll spend like 4 to 5 grand in a weekend just for a club weekend.
Oh my God. Is there a women in motorsports organization in
I haven't like looked into it super specifically in Ohio.
I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna research it and I'm gonna send it to you because
Please do.
I think in there, not only would they help you, but you could do a lot of damage in there. Not just because you know things that you know, but because you have a platform. There's probably so many young people who aren't even following you, who are looking up to you, seeing what you're doing, or maybe even haters who are seeing what you're doing and wanting to do what you do. So I think you're really cool for inspiring that many people. I just want to let you
Thank
know that.
you. No, that makes me feel really, really happy because like that's why I started. Well, that's why I like started social media because like I never like set out to be an influencer. Like it genuinely was just like, oh, like this is a fun little post, like here, fun little post there, and then I was like, people were like starting to be like asking me questions in my comment. Every here and there, I'll get a DM that's like, no, you're so badass, and like, how do I be like you? And it's like that makes me feel so like cool. Like even on my day to day basis, seeing younger women who are at the point in their life where they're trying to figure out what they want to do, just even like to acknowledge that what I'm doing is cool. Maybe that inspires them to figure out that that's what they want to do in life, and then they can go on and start forging their own path in their own way. That's the coolest thing to me. Is the way I look at it is if I inspire one person, I've done my job.
I just want you to know, I think you're going to be great for if anyone else wants you on their podcast. You know how to convey your emotions properly. You didn't swear at all. You didn't cuss at all. Like, you did really, really good. So, thank you for being my first ever recording.
Shout out to the public. Shout out to speech and debate classes coming on. I know you said you're not coming to PRI this year.
No, I'm not. I hope I like wish I was, but I quit that job, so I don't get free tickets no more.
Well,
I
I'll
know.
get we'll get you tickets. We'll figure it out.
Oh, we should. Hopefully,
I'm going to PRI in December. I want to be able to maybe go like to IMTS or FabTech as well.
that would be awesome.
Something
Seeing
like
you
that.
at FabTech would be sick. FabTech 2026 is coming up, so I'm gonna be there. I'm also gonna be at IMTS 2026, so hopefully we can get you out there.
I'll be out in February of 26, I think is my last session, if everything goes to plan. So I'll be looking for a job for the 2026 like race season. So now that I have a little bit of a year left, I want to spend this winter into next summer really networking and getting as many internships, connections, and things like that as I can to get as much experience before I look for a job. And then that way I hopefully will have a job set up for 2026 so I can pretty much just graduate and move to wherever I need to move and not have to worry about stuff.
Hopefully it's somewhere by the
Hopefully.
Carolinas, you know what I'm saying?
That would be dope. I will I say
Yeah.
so. Trackhouse Racing, they picked up Chip Ganassi's NASCAR assets a couple seasons ago. It's the first U.S. based MotoGP team in over a decade. So now there's actually U.S. assets in MotoGP, and it's run by Pitbull, which is Pitbull decided to hop into motorsports and start buy a NASCAR team.
That
And
it? Like
yeah,
like
like
Mr. Worldwide Pitbull? Oh,
So, but they now have a U.S. MotoGP team based out of, I want to say it's around the Charlotte area. So realistically, MotoGP would be the end goal as far as that's obviously like top tier motorcycle racing job ever. So
all right,
that's
let's
the
see
end
if we
goal
can
up
get you
there.
connected.
That would be
My
cool.
goal for the podcast is I want people DMing me, hey, do you have somebody that could work in this? Yeah, I got you. Like, I want
We'll get you
to be
there.
that person.
I was gonna
Thank you,
say
thank you.
I have some friends and stuff down here, friends back home that do other stuff in the industry that if you wanted,
Yeah,
I could see if
like,
they ever wanted to
even
come
if they're
on.
students, or if they have their own business, why not highlight, like, their small businesses? They still went to, like, certification classes for them, and it might not be blue collar.
Hey y'all. So it's Noosh, obviously, and I forgot to close out the episode properly. So if you want to connect with her or follow her on TikTok, I'll have her TikTok and Instagram in the description as well. So this episode we kind of yapped a lot about UNOH and tech school and motorcycle racing. So I hope you enjoyed this episode and thank you so much for recording with me, Liv. I'm so sorry that I blanked on the outro. Like, I was just editing and I'm like, I didn't put an outro in this? What? But thank you for listening to Next Gen MFG. Please rate this podcast 5 stars on the whatever platform you're listening to this on. And be sure to share, like, subscribe, and recommend me more guests. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting. And check out Liv. Support her journey. Be sure to give her some advice if you want to. And if you want to learn how to do what she did, hit her up. She's an open book. So, thank you guys.